quid pro quo regarding how money is paid? Like you're paying cash for the house. Is it paid in U.S. dollars or colones?
It depends. It depends on the seller. The seller gets to pretty much choose where and how they want to be paid. So if it's a Costa Rican seller, they're going to want the money in Costa Rica. Generally, since prices are in dollars, people want dollars, but sometimes people will want colones. We would do the exchange rate of the day. If it's a seller from the United States and they still have a bank account in the United States, then sometimes the money never even comes into Costa Rica.
Yeah, well, that brings up my next question, but I've finished with what you're saying.
Well, it just depends on the seller, as far as what the currency is and where the money goes. I've had money that was transferred to Prague. I mean, I've had, it goes all over the place. Panama, Prague, England, Scotland,
Wow.
New Zealand.
Wow.
And it's just like a transfer, like
It's
a wire
just an
transfer?
international wire transfer.
So I had a friend who a year or so ago on the beach purchased a piece of property. Didn't have any problem with title, but he went through a rather extended ordeal to get his money from the U.S. to Costa Rica to pay for the property. What's going on about money transfers from the U.S. to here when you're trying to buy real estate?
Well, that's where an experienced realtor is extremely handy, because I've done, dare I say, no, maybe not hundreds, but I've done a lot of transfers and initiated them. And part of my job as the realtor is to make sure that you have all the information you need to make sure that the transfer is done smoothly. What may have happened in the past is if the proper amount was not declared, if the money came to Costa Rica and they didn't claim the real sale price in the deed when we did the closing, or when they did the closing, then perhaps that was the problem, that the seller's bank received more money than they anticipated, so they froze it.
Irregularity of some sort.
Exactly. As long as the bank has all the information they need and the person doing the transfer has all the information they need, there should be no problems or hiccups. I've never lost money or had I've never had a stall.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
As far as paying for the rental, that actually is a little bit more complicated than the purchase sometimes, because
Interesting.
for the most part, if you're renting in Costa Rica, the owners are here in Costa Rica, so that's where they want the money. So until you're a resident or a citizen, it's a little bit complicated to get a bank account. You can get a bank account, but the funds are limited, generally to $1,000 a month is how much you can deposit in there. So if you've got a rental that's over $1,000 a month, well, if you have any other expenses, that's not going to cover it with your rental. So people go to the ATMs and they pull the money out of the ATMs. There are certain credit cards that you can get, or debit cards, I think, where they don't charge you fees. So if you know that you're going to come and you're going to be pulling a lot of money out of the ATMs, that's something that you should investigate. Some owners are in the United States, and if that's the case, then again, the money doesn't necessarily come to Costa Rica. Some owners also have PayPal. So it really just depends on where the owner is, on how you pay for it.
Okay, the next question is, how are home inspections done for home purchases?
Again, because we're in Costa Rica, it can be done many different ways.
They do them?
Yes, I do have an official home inspector that I recommend. He's been in Costa Rica for 30 years, I think. He's completely bilingual. He's built homes in the United States and he's built homes in Costa Rica, so he's familiar with both styles. He does a very complex inspection. He takes pictures, he does measurements, he checks for, all the usual things. You can also get somebody, if you already live here and you have a network of people that you trust, you can have your construction guy come in and have a look. You can have an electrician, really whoever you want to come have a look and do an inspection. They're not official because, again, most of the time my clients pay cash. Right, it's not required.
Okay.
I recommend it unless it's a home that I'm very, very familiar with and I've sold several times, so I know it. Generally, if there's a problem with the home, my clients call me, so I'm very familiar with any outstanding issues or any problems with the homes, but it is always good to get a house looked over.
We get down to the next transaction question, which is the closing process. From the time a person says, I'll buy it until the time they get the keys.
Generally a month.
A month,
It's
about
about
30
a month.
days.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on if the seller is in the country and if they have to come back, or if the buyer is in the country, if the seller has to pack. Generally, it's a month, but it can vary.
Extenuating circumstances, but on average, without those things, about a month.
Since they're, generally with purchases here, somebody is doing an international move, either the buyer or the seller, or sometimes both. We try to be very flexible, and that's also part of my job, is to make sure that everybody's satisfied with the timing and that everybody can accomplish what they need to in that timing, whether it's get the money together, unpack the house, get the house packed up. Sometimes pets actually play a part in that. I had a closing delayed because the people were moving back to the United States and they didn't have their pets, their health screening done, so that delayed the closing.
We had talked about,
Go ahead.
we had already talked about the payment for rentals, but there's a corollary question, and that is, we talked about monthly rental payments, the method, are you required to sign a lease? We kind of covered that.
A lease is in your best interest. It makes sure that both parties are very clear on what's happening and who's paying for what.
So there was a corollary question. This is regarding the rental again, and that is are you required to sign a lease, or perhaps you should sign a lease no matter what? So I'll let you take that.
Well, a lease is it's a benefit to both parties. It makes sure that everybody is clear as far as who pays for what, who's paying for the gardener, when is the rent due, how much is the rent, how much was the deposit. Sometimes there's extra deposits for pets. So a lease is definitely in your best interest.
And the final part of that is related to both rental and purchase. And it's our old friend named VAT. Mr. VAT. How does that work in rentals? How does that work in sales?
Well, the VAT is the new tax that we have from the fiscal reform from last year. And it is, for rentals, it is, I believe, on property 600,000 and up, which would be about $1,100 US. So if the rental is 1,100 or more, you must pay a 13% tax on top of it, and that goes to the government. That is I believe it is the owner's responsibility to pay that. This is still kind of new, so we're still learning.
Okay.
As far as purchase goes, there is, in real estate in Costa Rica, the standard commission is 5% of the sale price.
Okay.
So with the VAT now, on top of that, we have to pay 13% on top of that 5%, which is generally the seller's responsibility.
So that's a substantial amount. I mean, if you're selling a house
It
for
can be.
$300,000 US, that means it's really costing you almost $350,000 just with that VAT.
No,
tax.
because the VAT is only on the commission. So a $300,000 house would have a
I see.
$15,000 commission.
Oh, the VAT is only on the commission, not on
Correct.
the sales price.
That is correct.
Oh, okay. Big point.
It's
And
a
how
very
did that
big
VAT
difference.
tax get added onto the rental? That first house that we were looking at, house number 1?
I believe they had that one included. The VAT was already included
It
in
was,
the rental
but
price.
but they separated it out and they said $1,590 is the rent, is actually the rent, but the rent comes out to $1,800 because there's the VAT tax.
Oh,
That's not a standard
that-
thing, right?
is that the one that we saw together?
No, that was one before
Okay.
we got you.
Okay, so yeah, that's how that would have been then. It would have been $1,590 and then 13% on top of that.
Yeah. Because when the realtor presented it as $1,590, we
It
said,
was
"Oh, great, it's
deceiving.
$1,590," and then he said, "Oh, maybe I can get him to pick up the VAT," but then he didn't pick it up, so then it ended up being $1,800.
Which is a significant
It
difference.
is. It kind of just wiped that house off the
Yeah, that's
you
a
know,
lot
off
of
the
money.
board. Okay, next question. Can you tell us a little bit about property taxes in Costa Rica?
Yes, property taxes are low.
Yay!
Yay! Property taxes are 0.25% of the registered value of your property. So a property at $200,000 would pay about $500 a year, and that includes twice weekly trash pickup if you live in the country, and 3 times weekly trash pickup if you live in the city.
So this in relation to the areas that you know, that you're specialized in, the average cost of a house.
And can I just insert here? Everyone asks me that question.
Okay,
They're very concerned about housing prices. Something I can't answer and I don't even know.
Okay.
So,
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if there's an average price. There is an average amount that I sell to my clients.
How about a range?
Well, it starts at 60,000, I guess, up to a gazillion, depending on where you are. But generally, you can find a very nice house with some land, and by some land I mean half acre, for 175 to 225,000.
Okay.
Okay, so we say U.S. built to U.S. standards. That means hot water throughout, because your cheaper homes that are built by Costa Ricans and that are older generally do not have hot water throughout. A little bit of land, a nice view, and in an area that's not way far away from everything, you can get a house for about $200,000. As far as rentals go, I would say $900 is probably about the average for.
and that would be what size house about?
That would be probably a 1,100, 1,200 square foot house.
Couple bedrooms.
Couple of bedrooms, bathrooms with hot water,
Good.
and a little bit of grass. The land is more expensive than the construction in Costa Rica.
Oh, really?
Yes. So, people say, I want 20 acres near Gracia. That doesn't even exist. I mean, not within 10 minutes of Gracia. So, land is much more expensive than your construction price.
Wow, that's quite different than the United States.
Per square meter, which is it's the official measurement that we use here, you're looking at a lot on a main road like here with electric, with water right nearby. You're looking at least $60 a square meter, at least. And that is probably in the 400 to 600 square meter lot size, which is smaller.
Translate that into dollars. Translate that into
4,000 square feet.
Okay.
You can roughly multiply it by 10.
Right. Okay.
And as I'm having a lot of people contacting me lately about getting out of the United States, so a lot of people are looking at Costa Rica. So a question would be, do you see that any changes in the market as far as real estate costs and rental costs, say, due to COVID-19?
Yes, COVID has had an interesting effect on our market because we have not had any new clients come in since March. So rentals, you can get better deals on rentals right now if you're in the country and you're ready to rent, and also purchases. We're coming off of a year and a half or so of not very good market for sales. So a lot of prices are pretty low. I have a lineup of people ready to come to Costa Rica right now. That as soon as the borders open, I'm going to be very, very busy. So I anticipate this year is a really good year to buy because prices are low, but I think that they're going to probably start inching back up after this.
So, then the other question that comes up regarding the buying, do you have more buying clients purchasing or more rental clients who are looking for rentals?
That kind of varies. We go in
Different market?
We go in different waves. I would say I'm more of a realtor that works with selling rather than renting.
Okay. So you specialize more in
I
selling.
do more sales than rentals. I have more listings that are for sale rather than rentals, but it does go in waves. It seems like December and January are big for renters. And then actually in what is the summertime in the Northern Hemisphere, June, July, August, those are when I have most of my sales. So I would say it just really depends on the time of year.
So what would you say would be the major differences between buying in Costa Rica and buying in the United States? And then also when you're finished with that, if you could just liken that to rentals, difference between renting States renting Costa Rica, buying States, buying Costa Rica?
Okay, well, I never bought anything in the States, and I
Oh.
was not a real estate agent in the States. My whole adult life is in Costa Rica, and my young life was in the United States. But that being said, a lot of my clients have bought and sold a lot in the States, and so I am familiar with
Right.
some of the things that happen there. I think buying in Costa Rica is much simpler. We don't have the title company. Generally, it's in cash, so we don't have to go through the bank and loans. As long as we have an attorney,
Wow.
it's easy and fast, and there's one thing to sign for the most part.
All right.
As far as renting goes, I did rent in the United States. I think that I think it's harder because people are not as familiar with climate, with distance. There's not everywhere has a bus service. There's some towns that have really bad bus service and some towns that have very good bus service, and that's another reason why somebody with experience in renting homes or as a realtor can help you with what amenities are nearby a house, what kind of internet can you get, because when you come, or if you haven't lived here for a while, you have no idea of any of those things.
Right.
Right.
I think that the actual rental process, though, itself, I think that's easier.
It probably
After
is.
having done it, and also doing it from the States,
Mm-hmm.
it's, maybe it just depends on where you are in the States, too. But
No,
in the Bay
it's-
Area,
it's more complex than that.
yeah, there's a lot of hoops
Yeah.
to jump through and a lot of deciding who's going to get it, and, if you have the money now, and we'll contact you back. There's 10 people looking at the property, all that kind of stuff, which might happen here too. But I just found the
Not as
actual
often.
process to be easier here.
It should be a smooth, easy process.
So, a word about selling. Whatever you want to tell us.
If you're a seller in Costa Rica,
Yeah.
Yes.
be patient.
So you bought a house.
Don't worry, be
It
happy.
can take a while. Be flexible, be patient, be honest, and if the price is right, and if you've got a product that somebody wants, it will sell.
Do you think people generally, and maybe this happens in the States too, do you think people generally overprice their properties when they put them on the market, and is that the reason why oftentimes
Yes.
it sits?
Yes, most properties start off as overpriced.
Uh,
It's very difficult to make money in Costa Rica by buying and selling homes. It's not a real hot market. We don't have a gazillion clients. We have clients that are generally coming from around the world. Costa Ricans tend to not use realtors as much. So, yes, people generally start off with a price that is what they would like. And then eventually, once the price becomes something that somebody will pay for it, it sells.
I see.
I recommend prices when I list homes. People don't always listen to me. They want to try, and it's human nature.
Oh, that's ancillary questions then. You buy a piece of land, you build a house, and then a year later, for whatever reason, you want to sell it. The cost of construction plus the land versus the actual value of the property a year later. Are you building something that automatically you cannot sell at the price you built it for?
That's such a loaded question.
Well, I like loaded questions. As long as I don't have to answer them.
If you made a good purchase on the price for the lot, if you had a good builder who built a good house, that's something that somebody else is going to want to buy, not your dream house that has every strange thing that you've always wanted to have in a house. I mean, there are certain places that'll sell. A ranch-style home, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms with a pretty view and a nice yard will sell all day long in Costa Rica if the price is right. So it depends. If you built with if you had a good price, if you have a quality home, yes, you should really be able to.
At least get your money back.
You absolutely should be able to. As long as everything else
else
before
lines
that
up.
happened the way it was supposed to happen.
So be careful.
It's why it's good to work with a realtor,
Yeah.
because I know what prices are. I know what things have sold for. I've got 12 years of experience, which is quite a while for a Costa Rican realtor.
right.
Yeah, so you know how to deal with the ifs before they become facts.
Exactly. You make sure that things are lined up right from the get-go.
Okay.
Okay. Today, Brooke, are there any tips that you would give to anyone, things that they should be aware of before they come over here, that you would maybe be able to recommend to someone who's maybe just moving to Costa Rica and is thinking about buying a house or maybe even renting a house?
I think, because it's such a diverse country and you can find so many different climates and so many different feelings in different places, I think it's important that you do as much research from your home online as possible. Maybe narrow it down to a couple of different places, and then I would go and stay in those places for as long as you can. Try to get a hold of, if you don't speak Spanish, get a hold of other expats or people that speak your language. Try to really experience the area and then go with your gut feeling.
I think earlier you had mentioned Facebook groups too as well.
Mm-hmm.
Anything, like any particular kinds of Facebook groups that you would recommend that people become a part of besides mine?
Of course.
That wasn't a plug for me. No.
You've got to feel them out, because there's some where they're just like really mean and on you, and you can't even ask a question.
That's
and
true.
Everybody jumps all over you. So get out of those unless you like to be antagonistic. But I would join the Facebook groups. There's question and answer group for Gracia. There's several groups in Gracia, Expats in Gracia. I would get on several and see what you think about it, because there are different feelings to every group too.
Right. Okay, great. Well, we're going to wrap this part up, and we're going to talk next about if you want to build a house from the ground up.